Okay, this video is an introduction to the TIBA2 financial calculator. Or we're in the third row, we're in the third row, we're in the third row. So if you're taking your first college finance class, or you're taking intermediate accounting and need to use a financial calculator, or if you're having trouble falling asleep, this is the video for you. So let's start with the basics. How do you turn them on? Here it is, up here, on, off, toggles on, toggles off. The only caveat I want to include here is that it clears what's ever in the window when you turn this thing on and off. So if I had 5 plus 2 equals 7 up there and I turn it off, I turn it back on and it's gone. However, any numbers in this third row, in the third row, in the third row, anything in the cash flow menu or the bond menu, none of that stuff gets cleared just by turning the calculator on and off. For example, to clear this third row, we'd hit second, clear TVM, and that would get rid of all the data that was stored in there. CT stands for compute. If I did 5 plus 2 equals 7, I never had to hit the compute button. But in finance problems, we're going to have 3 of the 4 variables that we need, and we'll have to compute to find the 4th, or maybe we'll have 4. We'll have to compute to find the 5th. We'll hit compute and whatever variable we're trying to solve for to have the calculator solve the problem for us. There are 2 menus on our calculator. Some of them, one menu is on the keys themselves, but above the keys is a second menu, and you access that with the second key. For example, second begin will allow us to tell the calculator whether we receive the payments at the beginning or at the end of the periods. Second quit will allow us to quit that function. So hit second like a shift key, and then whatever function you want to access after that. This arrow here is like a backspace key. It'll erase whatever you last typed. So if you wanted to type in 889 and you typed 888, you can hit that and erase the last thing that you typed. The subtitle of this video is we're in the third row, we're in the third row, we're in the third row. So right in here we have N, periodic interest rate, present value, payment, and future value. So get used to hanging out in that neighborhood. Second format will allow you to set the decimal places. The first formatting thing the calculator asks you about is how many decimals would you like displayed. So if you want 4, hit 4, enter, second quit, and now 4 decimal places are displayed. But don't forget that the calculator does everything out to 13 decimal places. So just because you have only 2 displayed, that doesn't mean that that's the right answer. The right answer actually goes out to 13 decimal places. Sometimes we'll want to enter a number as a negative number. We might want to get into the habit of whenever we send money out in this third row that we think of that as a negative number. So we don't hit minus here. We use this change sign key here to toggle back and forth between plus and minuses. The CE key down here simply clears what's ever in the window. So if I hit clear, it will clear that, but it will clear that only. It will not clear the time value menu. That's a second clear time value menu. It won't clear the CF menu. You have to be in that menu and hit, or worksheet, and hit second clear work to get rid of that stuff. So when we're hanging out here in the third row, we're in the third row, we're in the third row, we may be doing a bunch of problems one day. It's a great idea. It's a great idea. It's a great idea to hit second clear time value menu in between problems, because otherwise you might accidentally leave $1 million future value in here, and the next problem has only a payment of $1,000 and wants you to calculate a PV. So it's just a great idea. Did I say that? To hit second clear time value menu in between problems, so you start anew on each problem. So there are a bunch of specialized worksheets on your calculator. It's really pretty smart little device. You've got a data worksheet here, you've got a bond worksheet, you've got a cash flow worksheet. So if your amount of your payment changes over the course of the investment, you'll have to use the CF key. There's an interest conversion worksheet in here. To clear those guys, you have to be inside them and hit that second clear worksheet to clear that stuff out. Most of the time in the real world and in finance class, we're dealing with an annuity. In other words, a payment that occurs at the end of the first period, at the end of the second period, at the end of the third period. But once in a while, there's an annuity due, and that means that the payment is made at the first day of the first period and the first day of the second period. An easy way to change our calculation method is to hit second, begin. Tells us that now we're assuming an annuity. You want to change it to an annuity due, hit second, set, and that says begin. Hit second, quit, and we're back to our familiar screen with a little reminder up there that we're set on begin. But please don't forget, please don't forget to set it back when you're done. So hit second, begin, second, set. It's now back to end where it belongs. Hit second, quit. The more often we compound, in other words, the more often the bank looks at, say, our savings account and adds interest to the principal and interest that's already in there, the higher the effective rate. So if we're looking at two different investments with different nominal rates and different compounding periods, to compare them, we have to use a concept called the effective annual rate. And our calculator will do that for us. So if we go to second interest conversion, let's clear everything that's in there before we start. And let's say we had a nominal rate of 12. Enter. Go up. It asks us how many compounding periods per year. Let's say 12. Go up, and then we hit compute, and it tells us 12% nominal rate, but compounding every month is a 12.68 effective annual rate. It's a pretty handy tool, and don't forget to clear it when you're done so that you don't leave something in there from the last time, the next time you go to do an effective annual rate. We're in the third row, we're in the third row, we're in the third row. What is the third row? It's got 5 variables in there. N stands for the number of periods. I is for the periodic interest rate. So if we had 1 year, the periodic interest rate would be the annual rate. If, however, we're talking about a monthly payment, then the periodic interest rate would be the annual rate divided by 12. So if we had a nominal rate of 12 and we're doing monthly payments, the periodic interest rate would be 1. 12% per year divided by 12 periods per year gives us a 1. PV stands for present value. PMT stands for payment. In other words, the annuity that we're going to get every month or every 6 months or every year. And FV stands for future value, a lump sum that we're going to receive sometime in the future. When we're solving these problems, well, they'll give us 3 of these variables and we'll have to find the 4th, or they'll give us 4 of the variables, we'll have to find the 5th. And that's when we'll plug them in any order, and then hit compute and press the button that we're trying to solve for. Don't be alarmed if you put in positive numbers and you get back a negative. The Excel does this, and the HP12C calculator does this. You might want to think that when you put money out, you're going to put it in as a negative. In other words, you're going to use this toggle switch on and off. And then when you get money back in, that's going to be a positive number. Whatever convention you want to use is fine. But if you have, for example, a payment and a future value that one is cash out and one is cash in, be sure to make them different signs. Just have to be extra careful about the sign convention. All right, let's do a simple problem. First of all, let's change this back to 2 decimal places to remind us how to do that. Hit second, format. First thing it asks us as far as formatting is, how many decimals would you like? We'll hit 2, enter, second, quit. What's the present value of $102 to be received 1 year from now, assuming a 2% discount rate? Let's put them in any order. So let's start with the interest rate. 2i. Since this there's no compounding in here, it doesn't talk about months or anything. We just use the annual rate of 2%. What's the n? What's the number of periods? 1. 1n. $102. Let's put that in as a positive number that we're going to receive, let's say, a year from now. And so now when we solve for the present value, we should get a negative 100. So let's hit compute, PV, sure enough, a negative 100. If I put $100 out of my pocket today, let it sit there for 1n, and earn 2% interest, at the end of 1 year, I'll have $102. There's the 102. Okay, there's a specialized bond menu in here, but for a beginning finance class, you can use the third row. Have I mentioned the third row before? To find out the price of a bond. So first of all, let's clear the third row. Second, clear time value menu. Let's clear that 102 by hitting that. And let's pretend we have a 6% bond. It's a 5-year bond. It's going to pay us an annual rate of interest of 6% and be due 5 years from now. Let's pretend like that's the right market rate. The contract rate and the market rate are the same. So when we find the present value, and remember that present value is the price that we should pay for any financial instrument. Whatever those future cash flows are worth today, discounted at the market rate is what we should pay. So if 6% is the market rate and the contract rate, when we find the present value of these future cash flows, we should end up with $1,000. So what do the cash flows look like? Well, we don't get anything today. We have to hold the bond for 6 months and then we'll get $30. Why 30? 6% times 1,000 is 60, divided by 2 because bonds pay interest semi-annually every 6 months. Gives us 30. 6 months go by, we get another 30. So for that first year, we got our $60. Then another 6 months, another $30, another 6 months, another $30, etc., etc., etc. And then at the end, we'll get $1,030 5 years from now. So, N is 10. Why do we say 10? It's a 5-year bond. We collect interest twice a year. 5 times 2 is 10. I is 3. Why do we say 3 instead of 6? Because it pays twice a year. 6% divided by 2 is 3%. So our periodic interest rate, our rate per 6 months, is 3. PV is what we're going to solve for. 30 is our payment. And 1,000 is our future value. And I put them both in as positives because they're both money coming into me. So let's see if we can solve for the present value. And sure enough, it's $1,000. So I should pay, in a 6% market, I should pay $1,000 for a $1,000 6% bond. What happens if interest rates go up? Well, as you may already know, if interest rates go up, bond prices go down. So this is my one exception to always clearing the time value menu. Let's leave everything the way that it is because we know it's right, and let's just change the interest rate. So let's pretend interest rates have gone up to 7%. They've gone up 100 basis points to 7%. So that means the only thing we have to change is 3.5 is our I. Remember, the company pays us interest twice a year. So 7% divided by 2 means that our periodic interest rate is 3.5. Now let's solve for the price of the bond. And the bond has gone down to $958.42. All right, let's do that same problem, but let's use the dreaded cash flow menu. So let's go in there. We have to use the cash flow menu. If this had been a 60 or a 50 or a minus 10 or whatever, if any of these had changed over the life of the bond, and then of course they never would in a bond situation, we have to use this menu here. All right, let's do it just for fun. Fun is in quotes. What's cash flow at time 0? Well, we don't get any money today. So we'll hit enter, down. Then the calculator asks us, what's the first cash flow? The first cash flow is $30. 30, enter, down. How many times? What's the frequency of that cash flow? Well, we're going to get that one 9 times. 9, enter, down. What's the last cash flow in this transaction? 1,030. 1,030. Enter, down. How many times do we get it? 1 time. So when you're using the cash flow menu, you're going to find the net present value. So you click NPV. It asks you what interest rate you want to use. Let's use that 7% per year or 3.5% per period. Enter, down. And let's hit our old friend, the compute button. And lo and behold, we get exactly the same answer. The price for that bond is $958.42. So I call it the dreaded cash flow menu because you only put in one cash flow at a time. And if you've got a whole slew of them, you've got a whole slew of opportunities to make mistakes. And you can't go back and see it all at once. You have to use the up and down arrow to try to figure out what you did wrong. So that's why we prefer to stay in the neighborhood of the third row. It's a comfortable place to be. So in summary, this calculator is a handy little device. We can turn it on and off up here. If we want to clear stuff out of, we were just in the cash flow menu, so let's clear that out by hitting the second and then hitting that. Let's exit that menu by hitting second, quit. Ways to clear things are, this clears your last stroke, this clears what's ever in the screen, this will clear what's ever in your third row, and then once you're in a menu like the CF menu, like the data menu, like the bond menu, you hit second and clear work, and that'll clear everything out of there. Don't forget in between problems to clear your time value menu. Don't forget you can set the number of decimals by hitting second format and then just hit enter and then quit. And don't forget, if you ever set your calculator to the beginning, second begin, second set, be sure to set it back, because the next problem is almost certainly going to have an annuity rather than an annuity due. Alright, so I hope that helps you get comfortable with your calculator, and I hope you enjoy using it as much as I do. Alright, hope that helps.